booktube, it's Louise the Big Hair Bookworm. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day wherever it is you are and whatever it is you're doing. Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel as she is rifling through some books that she has in front of her. Yeah, hello. Welcome back. Lovely to see you. Bit close then. Sorry about that. I would like to be sat on this chair. My last video, somebody said, oh, I like that chair with the leaves. And yes, I sit there to record recently. That's my latest new spot, and I would like to be sat there, but somebody else has claimed it for their own today. But that does mean he's not going to be staring at me. Staring at me through the window, wanting to come in. I also have the doors open for him to come in. Hello, how are you? It's not so hot. Not so hot today. No, it is a bit close. You know, this is a English booktube channel, so therefore it is contractually I am obliged to discuss the weather with you. It is a bit muggy. It's very grey, very overcast, quite warm, and what one would call close. Yes, could do with a good rain. Yesterday, more sunny. Had a lovely breeze about it. It was delightful. We sat out for about an hour under our stuff over there, just in the garden, enjoying the moment with the breeze. It was lovely. However, today it has been warm enough for a double load on the old washing. It was fabulous. Yes, I did have a slight alarm that with the second load I may have put it out just before it was about to rain. I walked to the post office, discussed it with the lady behind the counter. Because we're in England, we had to discuss both the weather and the washing that I had put out on the line. And she fabulously responded and did say, I just hope you get back in time. And I was like, no, I don't actually think it is going to rain. And it hasn't, so I was proved correctly. She says as she watches our undergarments slowly drying in the little breeze that we have, fluttering in the breeze, you might say. Flapping perhaps is perhaps a better word for my undergarments, because they are, large. They're bought for comfort and coverage, not for being alluring or inflaming. Because I kind of feel that if by the time we're together you've got to see my undergarments, then I kind of think you've already been lured. That no further enticement is required in the old undergarment stakes. So that's the way I see about it. And so they are sizable, but they are comfy. Always good. Too many years with uncomfortable undergarments, and that conversation's taken a turn. Let's stop it right there. Let me just do some parish notices before I crack on with the books that I have in front of me. I have a weird selection of books, but you know me. I do like a wide variety of books, and these are books that I have enjoyed recently, and they are, I'm thinking I haven't shown them to you before, but if I have, bear with. So parish notices that I have gathered from being in the village. The director would like to say a big thank you for the pantomime costume that was returned. However, she has put a plea out for the Aladdin's lamp to also be returned. So if you could check the back of your cupboards, so a kind of a lamp looking thing, quite dusty. If you just want to bring it back, but don't be tempted to rub it, just bring it back, that'd be great. We are doing Aladdin later in the year. We need our lamp. Thank you very much. The WI Bring and Buy sale, the date has been announced for September. So if you want to check your notices for that and put that in your diary, it does clash with the Scouts and the Guides. Bring and Buy. But as Shirley was saying, they always do it on that weekend. So the Guides and the Scouts will have to move theirs. And she also pointed out that the White Elephant stall isn't just for white elephants. The white elephant refers to miscellaneous items that don't naturally fit in any other category rather than white elephants themselves. She's okay for white elephants. She's more looking for other terms like bric-a-brac. So yes, I am paraphrasing what Shirley said, because we all know Shirley. She's got a bit of a way about her. Let's say she could make a soldier blush, good our Shirls. So I am paraphrasing, and that's the end of the parish notices for today. You are here for the books. You are here for the books, friends. Cat's moved, but I'm sat here now, so we'll just go for it. So these are some books that I have really enjoyed recently. Well, am I overstating it? No, I'm not. I have enjoyed them. All of them I've been gripped by and I've read, and I want to talk to you about. So this is one that I got for my birthday, which was a couple of months ago, from the husband. It's called The Premonitions Bureau, a true story by Sam Knight. It's published by Faber and Faber. It is a fine looking book. I love this kind of graphics. This to me shrieks 60s, early 70s graphics. Oh, love, just gorgeous. It is a splendid looking hardback. Oh, it's white. Look at that, that's still lovely. End papers are nothing to shout home about. They are a noble black. What's this about? This is about, I read a couple of months ago. I did really enjoy it. Can I remember what it's about? So, true story about this psychiatrist who put a call out into the paper because he wanted to look at whether premonitions could be classed as a real, or could be used to prevent accidents happening. Were there actually people having premonitions in a reliable way that could be used to prevent what they had seen? And if so, how would you go about it? So this actually did happen. So the Premonitions Bureau does make it sound more of a government thing, and it wasn't a government thing. Let me just read a little bit from what it says. What if you had a vision of something particular and very terrible was going to happen? A train crash, a department store fire, an assassination. What if you could share your vision and prevent a disaster? In 1966, John Barker, a psychologist working in an outdated British mental hospital, established the Premonitions Bureau to investigate this very idea. He would find a network of hundreds of correspondents, from bank clerks to ballet teachers. So it's about who he is, why he set it up, the other people, the other characters that were kind of drawn into this, and it is a book full of characters. Now, Sam Knight is a staff writer at the New Yorker based in London. His work has also appeared in The Guardian, Financial Times, Harper's. He's that kind of pedigree, so he's long form feature writer, journalist. He's not out there getting the stories and writing up copy quickly. He writes the long form articles and obviously researches things. I wouldn't say investigative journalist, but perhaps he would call himself that. I don't know the chap. I'm sure he's a lovely chap. It did read at times like a long form article, like it would be like it could have been first an idea for the paper or papers or for that kind of thing, and then was expanded. The way it's incredibly factual and dense, very dense with information. It does feel like he's trying to give you all this information. It's written in a very engaging way, very easy to read. Also, the premonitions are not jolly things. They are always something terrible happening. So there is this kind of constantness of bad things happening, and people who have possibly seen it taking place. So in that respect, it was quite a hard read, in the fact that the topic wasn't amusing or jolly or light. However, I did really enjoy it. I thought I would fly through it because it's only like 250 pages and the text is, fairly large. But I needed to take it a little bit slower to allow myself to actually feel the impact of it, as well as take in all the information. I'd not heard about it beforehand. It's only just come out in the last couple of months. Really highly recommend it. If it sounds like something you'd be interested in, I do recommend it. It's currently hardback. I don't know if it's out in other countries, I should imagine so, but yeah, that's my book that I got for my birthday from the husband. The husband saw it and thought, she will love that, and he was right. So well done, the husband, who did very well. He's now currently reading it. Again, he's finding it slower than he imagined. So when I said to him, it's slower than you think, he was like, really? But he actually agreed. Completely changed. A Good Marriage. It's a thriller. I saw it on Books and Lala's channel. For some reason, I was in the mood for a thriller. And whether or not I had just finished something that maybe the Premonitions Bureau, I can't remember when I read it. I read it in the last couple of months. I just needed a thriller. I thought this sounded interesting. It's the perfect life, the perfect neighbourhood, the perfect murder. So, young lawyer Lizzie gets a call for help from an old friend accused of murdering his wife. She reluctantly says yes. It's a small host of characters that it could be. It is those people that have got perfect lives haven't got perfect lives. It's to do with a party where people can go upstairs, and it's not putting keys in a bowl and finding out who. It's a kind of a end of year party, as in end of the school year, end of the academic year party, and people can go upstairs and nothing is said about it. It's the kind of one opportunity you can do these things. She says, looking sceptical about it. So it's this kind of high class New York society looking for thrills and spills. It all looks wonderful from the outside, but is it? Is there more rotten things going on inside it? And it's about that. It's about the secrets and lies that comes out. I just needed a thriller. It hit the spot brilliantly. Is it the best thriller I've ever read? No. Is it a good potboiler, a good page turner, one that you can just read and then move on from? Yes. Did I work out who it was? Yes. Did I work out who it was quite early on? Yes. But then I have read a lot of thrillers. A Killer by Design, Murderers, Mind Hunters, and My Quest to Decipher the Criminal Mind by Dr. Anne Wolbert Burgess, with Stephen Matthew Constantine. Ooh, that's a lot of names there. So this Dr. Anne Wolbert Burgess, I don't know why she uses that, is, as she's featured in the books called Mindhunter by John Douglas from the FBI Behavioural Criminal Unit. I can't remember what it's. The BC, is it the BCU? Will it tell me if I have a quick stare at it? Oh, yeah. So it's the Behavioural Science Unit, BSU, Behavioural Science Unit. She was not a profiler. She would add to it. She wouldn't have. I don't think she would have classed herself as a profiler. She was much more to do with. She was much more of a researcher and an academic, looking at how to capture information about sexual crimes and the perpetrators of sexual crimes, and also people that had experienced them. As a woman, she was able to talk to women and have a different perspective because she understood the idea of, she had a more innate understanding in some ways, being a woman and understanding what the threat was. So it's a behind the scenes look at the creation of the FBI's Behavioural Science Unit. I was right, BSU. Written by the pioneering forensic nurse who transformed the way the FBI studies, profiles and catches serial killers. So it is quite a dense book. I didn't read this, again, this is another book I didn't read as quickly as I thought I was going to read, because it is quite dense. It's dealing with understanding serial killers in a very factual and academic fashion. It is about how to capture the information that you are looking for. It's about trying to understand what information they needed to be able to start to craft profiling and how profiling began. So it is a history of how profiling began and the deficiencies it had in it to begin with, because it didn't come from an analytical way, a kind of research-based analytical way. She was a pioneer in the fact that she used research, the fact that she used the serial killers as a pool for research, alongside John Douglas. But she'd already started to use the idea of the people that had been involved were your best pool of information. So she would go and interview these people, and she does talk about that. So it is quite, I found it quite dense. I found it full of information. Fascinating, utterly fascinating. It was adding a different layer to the conversation about what makes a serial killer, what makes somebody do the things that they do, and how they would put together a profile. And it allowed me to understand how profiles are put together. So that was great. So if you are into true crime and you want to look at more, rather than just the stories of true crime, you want to actually look about what crime is and the people that perpetrate it, and also how those that seek to capture the people perpetrating it, the science behind that, this is fascinating. Also, if you're interested in kind of academic research along that way, I recommend that. So that is A Killer by Design by Dr. Wolbert Burgess. Really fascinating, really enjoyed it. Not an easy read again, but well worth it. And I found that when I put it down, I didn't necessarily want to pick it up. So I would see it and I would go, not really in the mood for you right at this moment, Dr. Anne. I'm, respect you, highly admire you, but I'm not quite there for you. When I would pick it up and I would say, no, I've got some time, I've got some space, I've got some brain space to read it, I was glad that I did, and I would always take something from it. And it's part of my true crime library that I'm slowly but surely building up there. I've actually got rid of a lot of them, of books that I know I wasn't going to read again, but that I probably would refer to, or would think I've read something about that and go back to it. So I'm pleased that I've got that book. In a more light-hearted tone, he's a cad, he's a bounder. Just giving a good slap around the chops. I've read this before. I didn't know I'd read it before until I picked it up and started it and thought, I've read this before. And I think exactly the same thing happened this time as happened before. I have a collection of Patricia Wentworths. Patricia Wentworth is not well recognised. I would love more people that like cosy crime to read Patricia Wentworth. Her detective, Miss Silver, is great. Is she better than Agatha Christie, Patricia Wentworth? No. But does she slide into that golden age of crime writing? Yes, she does. A lot of them come from the 1930s, 40s and 50s. She wrote a lot of books. They are of mixed. I think this is it. There are two things about Patricia Wentworth's which means they're not as popular. There tends to be a romance in it. Just gonna have to put that out. They are clean. They're absolutely clean. So if you like your romance clean, Patricia's there for you. But there nearly always is this kind of, there is a romance somewhere in it, Maud, and Maud kind of helps that romance. Also, it can be quite long-winded until we get to the murder. So it can take a while to get to it. The pacing can be a bit off. However, I am prepared to overlook all of her sins, for I just enjoy the period nonsense that Patricia writes about. The mysteries are convoluted and silly, but I quite like the earnest, cosy crime tone in it. So they're not arch, they're just great. Miss Silver is a private investigator. She was a governess. She has connections, because she was a governess, she has connections to some chief constables in the area, and detective superintendents and detective inspectors, and those that have worked with her in the past. She now works as a private investigator. Well, she will be she could be called in as a private investigator. And like, was it Sergeant Frank Abbott, who is one of the police, calls her Maudie, and it just, Maudie, it's brilliant, and he adores her, and I like that attitude, the way that sometimes that in Agatha Christie's books, that some of the police detectives, the feelings that they have about Miss Marple, or Inspector Japp has about Hercule Poirot, I quite like the fact that these kind of private inquiry agents have a connection with the police and are accepted and brought in, and that's one of the reasons why she gets given all the information that the police have and is able to use that. So she becomes part of it. The breakdown of the crimes at the end is a lot of common sense. I just enjoy them. So I picked up this one again because the cover is as fabulous as always. It is. This lady giving this chap with his chiseled jaw a good smack. Miss Silver Comes to Stay. I picked this up. I read it in about a day and a half. It was so enjoyable. I loved it. So I read that, and I remember I actually ordered in Spotlight by Patricia Wentworth, because I remember reading this many years ago and haven't read it since. So my mum had a collection when I was growing up. My mum and dad actually had a collection of these when I was growing up, and the cover, I remember the cover of Spotlight. I think it was called something different. But I remember it being quite chilling. And as a detective novel, I found it quite chilling. And I've never read it since I was in my teens. I must have read it a couple of times when I was in my teens, because I, would reread crime and horror happily, for those frisson of horror, or that kind of, feeling uncomfortable when you're reading something because they're villains. And I couldn't remember what it was that I found so chilling about it. And it's because the person who gets murdered in this is a rotter of the highest order. So there is this kind of push me, pull me thing, that the person who gets murdered in this, actually, he's a wrong 'un. But the cast of characters around him are wrong uns too. There is a romance in this, which is very sweet and very lovely, and I did enjoy it a lot. So I haven't read this for years, probably 30, if not more years. It stood the test of time for me. I read it in about a day, maybe a bit more. Highly recommend. When did this come out? I love my 1947. This one came out. Oh, it's great. And this is the latest one that I've read, which is called The Key. And I was drawn to that because of the interesting chemical apparatus on the cover, and it had something to do with kind of perhaps a bit of spy information. Love a spy novel, but I didn't actually, there isn't a lot of spying involved in this, but it was good. So yeah. So I read this one as well. So I've really enjoyed it. I've listened to one as an audiobook, and I am going to download another one as an audiobook because I really got into it. A lot of the audiobooks the reviews are appalling about saying how slow they are, but I like that pace. I like to have an audiobook where it takes its time to get into it and I get involved in it. As much as anything, it's for the period setting for me, that kind of 1930s, 1940s, early 1950s setting, I find fascinating, and it is my comfort zone. Last but least, this was an unusual book for me to fly through, but I did. And actually, weirdly, I didn't feel that well when I read it. but it was great. I read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I bought this ages ago and never got round to reading it. But I saw the second one in the series, The Woman of Troy by Pat Barker, in a local supermarket at a much reduced price. And so I snapped it up because I thought, well, that's going to go rather nicely on the shelf next to the book I've already got. Sometimes when you see a series developing, you have to get right in there. So, The Women of Troy inspired me to then, the following week, pick up The Silence of the Girls, because I thought, well, I'm going to want to read The Women of Troy. Better read this one first, and this is The Silence of the Girls. So, this is, now there's going to be some names I might not be able to pronounce correctly, you'll just have to bear with on this. So, when the Greek queen Helen, I can pronounce that, was kidnapped by Trojans, still good. The Greeks sail in pursuit, besieging the city of Troy. Again, no issue. Trapped in the Greek soldiers' camp is another captured queen, Briseis. That's how I'm going to go from it. Condemned to be the bed slave to Achilles. Again, I'm all right with that one. The man who butchered her family, she becomes a pawn in the menacing game between bored and frustrated warriors. Actually, just having Briseis at the back. There are a lot of other names in the book that I could really murder. Ventriloquus, I think that's one I was stumbling over. Agamemnon is a name for some reason. I get halfway through and then I lose my way. Odysseus, I'm all right with that one. So no, maybe I'm not so bad. It is a reimagining. This is a retelling of the story of the siege of Troy and the end of the siege of Troy. Much like the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, this one is from the perspective of the women. It is from the perspective, women and girls. And Briseis is mentioned, if you read around it, is mentioned in Homer's Iliad. Is it the Iliad? Yes, the Iliad. It's mentioned in the Iliad. She's only mentioned very, very briefly. There's no kind of going into her because Homer wasn't interested in her at all because she was just literally used. This is quite an unflinching look into the life of these women, reimagining. Pat Barker can be unflinching. I've discovered that about her other books. There is something about the way that she writes, and something about the way she moves as well. Something about the way that she writes I find enthralling, inviting, and I'm drawn into it. And when I finish it, I kind of emerge blinking and then feel the plot holes. And then I'm not entirely satisfied. And this is exactly what happened with this. What happened, I found this, the idea of it being a feminist book, which is just quite often said it's a feminist retelling. I found that an uncomfortable term for it, because for me, if it was a feminist retelling, it would be talking about not just their story, but their actions in a way that they had agency. They were the impetus. It's an understanding of their experience and putting them front and centre in that way is feminist. It's giving them equal weight, but it wasn't equal weight. They were still used. They had no agency. Their actions were all in response to the actions of the men in the story. And it was as much the story of the men as it was the brutality towards the women. And just saying it's a feminist book because it details the brutality that these women experienced didn't strike me as a feminist. It struck me as a necessary and uncomfortable read, well written, enthralling, thought-provoking, but I questioned its its position as a feminist retelling, much because they didn't have. Again, it was still a story of the men and how the women responded to the men. The women still didn't have agency. They were front and centre in their pain and their suffering that had been inflicted by the men. So I did find it an uncomfortable read. I do think it was well written. I didn't like, and I'll be completely honest here, I didn't like the modern day vernacular that was used. It's not constant, but there is modern day vernacular, and I feel there is modern day sensibilities played out here, which I found jarring and took me out of where I was in the story, which is not what I want. So I will say that was an issue for me. Some people, I would imagine, enjoy that and or wouldn't notice it. But for me, I found that uncomfortable in a way that the Song of Achilles didn't have that, or Circe didn't have that. That, to me, I felt that was all written cohesively. About Circe there? Yeah, Circe by Madeline Miller. I felt it was written, it was a cohesive narrative that felt more feminist than anything. So that I found Circe, what I was saying. I preferred Circe, which is just there. As a retelling, was a lot more my kind of book than the Song of Achilles. Song of Achilles I thought was a bit pandering to the old emotion, and it was putting modern day sensibilities in it, whereas Circe, I felt that she had some good vengeance going on there, and I loved all of that. So there is that. I'm just trying to think where my Song of Achilles is. Could you answer me that? I think it's in that bookcase over there. Might not be, but I think it is. It's not in that one, is it? Does it matter? No, I'll stop looking. So yes, so that was that one. So that was The Silence of the Girls. I read that. I actually didn't feel that well that day, and it was great for that because it took me away from where I was and took me to this completely different place, and I got absorbed into that and could forget not feeling well. So for that, it was brilliant, and I thank it. I haven't picked up The Women of Troy yet, and that's partly because of my reservations of The Silence of the Girls. I wonder whether this is going to be the same. This says, the setting is Bronze Age, but Pat Barker draws on modern horrors. Islamic State, slave markets, mass refugees. Okay, let's see. So Troy has fallen. So that was the siege of Troy, and now this is Troy. The Greeks have won their bitter war. They can return home as victors. All they need is a good wind to lift their sails, but the seas have been calmed by vengeful gods. So the warriors remain in limbo. Camped in the shadow of the city they destroyed, kept company by the women they stole from it. The Women of Troy: Helen, Cassandra, Amina, Hercubia, and Briseis. So, yeah. We're going on holiday shortly, so I think I might take it because I think it would be good to read it soon after reading The Silence of the Girls, because it would be interesting to see whether it has those same. I have those same reservations in it, but does she always cast her magic on me like she did with that? And I find myself drawn in, and it's only afterwards I go, oh, actually, and I get all. I also want to read the Regeneration Trilogy by Pat Barker. I've read the first one, and I haven't read the second two. So the first one is Regeneration. So all set in the First World War. So I've read Regeneration. I think I've read The Eye in the Door, and I haven't read The Ghost Road. So I would quite like to get them as a set of 3 and read them perhaps one a month or something like that. That might be really good. So maybe you'd be interested in doing that with me. Let's throw that out as an idea. Crazy idea, but let's give that a go. So there we go. So those are the books. So I haven't actually read that one, so I won't show you it, but I will show you the ones that I have read recently. These are the last couple of months and have really enjoyed, or had reservations for, or they've gripped me. So it's like a good weird selection, which is about right for my reading. What books do you like to read? I like to read a weird selection. There we go. There we go, BookTube. This has been lovely. I was hoping this wasn't going to be too long. Let's have a look. Yeah. Okay, we'll just forget about that. This has been lovely, BookTube. Let's do this again.